Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the DropKick Podcast. He's a WWE producer slash WWE veteran.
You're a three-time WWE Tag Team Champion.
He's a former WWE Cruiserweight Champion. She's a broadcast personality, a former member of the Nexus. He's a four-time Emmy-winning TV host.
Canadian Wrestling Hall of Famer. She's an ACW Women's Champion, and she is the daughter of the late, great British Bulldog. Winner of WWE's Cruiserweight Classic.
TJ Black from Ring of Honor, from TJP, aka TJ Perkins, from Georgia Smith, Darren Young, Arnold, Ariel Blake,
Chris Van Vliet,
Wrestling Classic, aka Justin Dillon.
Please welcome Tyson Kidd, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of DropKick Podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. That's right, we have a legend in the house.
One of the greatest MMA fighters of all time and a UFC Hall of Famer.
Former NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
Former WWE Intercontinental Champion.
The godfather of MMA. That's right. Please help me welcome the legend at this time, the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Thank you guys for having me, and thanks for the introduction.
No worries, man. But what has this time in quarantine meant to you? Because I know we've been on lockdown, but what has this time meant to you mentally and physically, of course?
Well, I think if you think back when it all first started, and I guess people were a little bit scared, the unknown, how serious it was, the night of the living dead all over again, were we going to actually live, people getting infected and dying and the world coming to an end, just all the hype going around it. And, for me, I've always taken almost everything that has come at me in life head on. And in other words, what I mean was that I don't believe everything that is said to me. I don't believe what goes on TV. I don't believe what's said in newsletters. I don't believe any of that stuff unless I can feel it, touch it, and see it. And that's how I approach everything, right? Not that I'm discrediting anything. It's just me as a person is not going to get all worked up over it. And so when it first came out, that's the way I approached it, right? It was like, okay, let's see what happens. And as time went on, not being able to fly to places, jobs being shut down, appearances being canceled. And I got frustrated. I got frustrated because I felt like I couldn't see it and I couldn't touch it. I didn't understand it. With most things, you're able to kind of piece it out, figure it out, go, okay, I understand that. But even up to this day, and not to say it's not real because I don't know. Like, all I know is I'm still in that same position I was when all this started. Was like, okay, prove it to me. Let me see it. That's where I'm at right now, right? I hear people come to me and say all the time, well, this guy died this and this guy died this, saying it. And I'm not saying it isn't true, but I know people die of heart attacks every day. I know people die in car accidents all the day. I know people die of flu because their systems are weak every day, and people that are older. So nothing has really made sense as far as the shutdown in a way of the spread of the virus, of the masks, of all these things. And I'm not saying for any reason whatsoever that I know what was right and wrong. I'm just saying kind of the way I felt was almost like I'm still blank. Like I still don't know on the A side or the B side or the right side or the left side. I don't know. And that's kind of how I feel through this whole thing, is just a confusion of not knowing what's right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, man. It's hard to know what to believe and what not to believe when it comes to the media. They like to portray things in different ways, different news stations. It's very political. But obviously, taking a turn into this conversation, obviously you are a professional wrestler, a very well-known one. Many casual wrestling fans may not know you're one of the best MMA fighters of all time. So as someone who's been watching pro wrestling their whole life and kind of watching MMA now, I'm curious to know, what was it like making that transition to MMA to pro wrestling? Was it difficult?
No, actually, it was from wrestling to MMA. I think a lot of people forget that I started out in the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic pro wrestling in North Carolina. And then I went over to Japan and did Baba's group for a while. And then, of course, this big thing came up for me with the UWF and the Fujiwara Gumi. And then, of course, the real thing, Pancrase. So it was more of a journey and a transition that I went through from pro wrestling into this work shoot style with UWF into the Pancrase organization. So for me, the transition was a natural transition because it was almost like I went from pro wrestling to over to the Japanese style, which was very fast,
That's
into
true, yeah.
the UWF that was pro wrestling turned into an aggressive pro wrestling style, into Pancrase, which was turning wrestling into real fighting, because that's what it was. We wanted to know what it would be like for pro wrestling to be real. So that's why we started the Pancrase organization with Funaki and Suzuki and Mr. Ozaki. So that was a really natural transition. Then, of course, from there, I went into the UFC, which was another step of just basically a bare knuckle instead of mixed martial arts, which is what it is today. It was the no holds barred NHB, bare knuckle, anything goes. And then, of course, it went backwards again, back into the MMA, which is the UFC now. So for me, that transition was something that just naturally went along this trail that I had been traveled. And every step of the way, I was able to rise to the top and become the best.
That's true, man. Great insight, obviously.
Man.
But in an interview with an MLW superstar, Tom Lawler, he was asked, what is more difficult, pro wrestling or MMA? And he had an interesting answer to say. He said the following: the schedule and the bumps are harder in pro wrestling, obviously, but MMA is harder on the mind due to the stress and the mental preparation. Do you agree with that? And what is your opinion on that?
I think everybody's different. My background, where I came from, was I grew up in the streets. I lived out of a car. I had to worry about getting stabbed or shot when I got into a fight, or 10 guys jumping you. So my stress level as far as preparation going into a fight probably is not as normal for some people who may have not grown up the way I grew up. For me, it was like I was going to get paid and I wasn't going to get jumped, shot, or stabbed. I mean, that's like, wow, like, oh, yeah.
It's really eye-opening, right?
Yeah, so for me, it was exciting, and the journey was exciting. And but I do understand how some people, because maybe of that they grew up, or maybe even it's a faith thing, they're Christian or something like that, where they struggle with the scripture or whether or not you're supposed to hit another human being. And so there's a lot of different things that come into that stress level of being a professional fighter with actual life things that you stand by. But for me, like I said, the way I grew up was basically, it was almost like you're saying it's okay for you to go in and beat somebody up and fight and make money at it on top and not get arrested. And so it was an exciting journey. It was fun. And I agree. I think that the schedule of pro wrestling and the bumps that you take, I got hurt more in pro wrestling than I ever did in fighting. And one of them was because I was good at fighting. I was just literally good at it. So I was able to go and fight somebody, put them away in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But in a pro wrestling, I've got to let a guy slam me 20 times, 15 times.
That's true.
So that means my body's taking much more punishment doing that than it was if I'd go in and put a guy away.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, definitely understandable. A lot of people don't understand like the toll that pro wrestling has on someone's body. It can really, really break you down. But we've seen some young fighters come up recently, like Sean O'Malley and Mike Davis. Just curious on the MMA side, who do you see as a top prospect right now?
In MMA? Yeah, I've been asked this many times, and I'm not the kind of guy that wants to go ahead and put other people over and not credit where there's a lot of credit due. Because, if you're looking at it right now, I think there's in at least every weight class, there's at least 10 guys that legitimately can challenge for that title. There are very few cases in these weight divisions where one person literally stands out. And I think that you look at the John Jones, the Miocic, especially with the retirement of DC. Yeah, so you got Daniel Jones, you got Mochek, and then of course, Khabib. And I'm sure there's a lot of other guys in there too. I mean, if Conor McGregor comes back and Khabib will fight him, that's always an interesting one. If Jones goes up to the weight class and fights Mochek, that's another one that's fun to watch. But all in all, I think that most of the other weight classes is very competitive. So, and it's going to be interesting to see in the next, I would say a year to 2 years, who's going to be that next person, because by that time, I truly believe Khabib, Mochek, Jones, we're going to be talking about them with somebody else that's coming up, because there's a lot of new talent moving out and coming up. And, I can't not mention, even though he's probably ranked at number 4 or 5 in the heavyweight, is it super heavyweight or no heavyweight Mochek's division? What do they call him, the beast or the bear or something? He's ranked number 4, 3 or 4, 5, something like that. He's
a big guy.
Yeah, but he got beat once, I believe, and I think by Mochek, if I'm not mistaken. But that was back in the beginning. So, and I forget his name, but I think that he's one that we'll be talking about within the next year. But other than that, like I said, I think a lot of these guys and a lot of these divisions are very competitive. But the reason why we're looking at the MMA now, and it's almost looking like it's kind of flat, and COVID could be a part of it, but it's because we're not letting stars develop. We're not letting characters come out, because everybody's got to wear the same thing. There's no, they're being put in a corral because they don't want people to mess up like Conor did. And to me, I think there's, Conor maybe went a little far sometimes, but we need people like Conor McGregor. We need that
exactly.
And I think that they're being handcuffed, and I don't think it's good for the sport.
I agree, especially coming from like a professional wrestling fan who's just starting to come in kind of find an interest in MMA. I've always found, just since I've enjoyed wrestling, I enjoy watching the guys who have some personality with them.
Yeah.
It gets 100%. Me more hyped for their fights for sure.
Now, I understand that we've got the chair to the bus, that was something that was a little extreme, because now you're talking about safety of other fighters. So I understand that too. But I also think that everybody has to live and die by their characters. And if Conor McGregor gets out caught sleeping with girls, or somebody gets in his face and altercations happen, I mean, you can't go in and be God. The organization can't be God. They can't go in and be this guy's dad, mom, and dad, right? I think this is what makes sports so interesting, whether it's in football, basketball, baseball, MMA, boxing. There are characters that are always going to put a foot over the line. But that's what makes it so exciting, is whether or not they're going to be able to hold it within the boundaries and continue with their career, or whether or not they're going to blow up and they're going to be kicked out of the sport. But whatever it may be, it is not the organization's responsibility to police these people and be their moms and dads. They're there to give them opportunity to be a fighter and succeed in their craft. And if they're the ones that get into the trouble, don't blame the organization. Obviously, there's got to be penalties. Like, for instance, if somebody does break the rules, then you have to hold up to some of those penalties. Like with John Jones, I think that, there wasn't enough things, because now you're talking about a guy who abused drugs, right? And that if you care for this individual, and I think John Jones is a great person, a great individual, but has issues with those things. And if you are going to play that role as a person that's going to get involved and hold these different guidelines to these sports, then John Jones should have been much more aggressively attacked on that issue. Because now you're talking about someone literally getting into a situation where he can really hurt himself. So therefore, if you want to care and you want to do something and keep the sport clean, you have to attack that. Maybe not some of the other stuff where it's more aggressiveness and more character of fighters, but something like that where can really spiral out of control and do some damage to that individual. I think those rules and those regulations should be really, really tight.
Absolutely, man. 100%. 100%. But still on the topic of MMA and a little bit of pro wrestling, who do you believe is the greatest MMA fighter of all time, alongside greatest pro wrestler of all time?
Yeah, I don't have the credentials for that. I really don't. Being a fighter, I'm always going to say me. I thought that the time that I fought, in the world of no holds barred, bare knuckle, a couple times in one night. I fought a 2-day tournament over in Japan and won that. Became the first champion. I also fought probably at that time, not probably, but he was so much more skilled than anybody else, which was Hoist Gracie. With that type of fighting, no one understood it. No one did it. I had a little understanding of it, but we didn't wear geese, right? We didn't close fists. So there's a lot of stuff I didn't understand going in trying to compete against a guy with that much experience, and we were only 10 pounds in difference. So it wasn't like I was way bigger than him either. So for what I was able to do in that time and the things that I was able to do with 2.5 years of experience, literally, I was a 2-year wrestler in high school. I had no boxing experience other than tough man's. I had no background in karate, no background in anything, just a street fighter. In 2.5 years, I was able to capture the Pancrase organization in a 2-day tournament, and I was able to beat up one of the guy that won 4 tournaments, who at that time arguably probably the greatest fighter in the world, because pound for pound, he did it. And I was able to beat him up for 36 minutes. And then go on after that to be able to capture the most, at that time, the most prestigious fighting belt. Handed out to the very first person was me. So every one of those belts go through me. So what I'm saying, I'm tooting my own horn. But again, I'm a fighter. I believe in my time and what I did, set the standard for what everybody else is doing now. And I did it with hardly any experience whatsoever, just 2.5 years, 3 years of experience before I caught 2 belts, as opposed to other people doing what they do. So, if you want to go with that and look at it like that, then I think, me. But if you want to look at it with people that have skill sets and have been doing it for a longer time, and been able to get in there and have some awesome, great careers with this type of level of combat now. You got guys like John Jones, Mochik, even DC, who's just retired.
Yeah.
Even St. Pierre, Silva. I mean, it's just a lot of guys you look back on.
So many guys, man.
Yeah, just, they went undefeated for quite a long time. And so you got to give them credit too, because even in today's world, with everybody knowing what they were doing now, arguably, is it harder or is it less harder? So, again, like I said, those are arguments, and there'll always be arguments. What you think?
Absolutely. I think you were really ahead of your time, because, we saw you do, kick ass back in the day in fighting and even in the WWE back in the day. But guys like Brock Lesnar, followed your way. Kurt Angle, like there's so many guys. And I think for you to lead that path, it's so great. But you know what, man? That ankle lock that you put, it's crazy. Like it looks like it really hurts, and
it's
that's
amazing.
What you want. That's what you want, man. So
exactly.
So ask the guys that we all put it on. They'll tell you it's a legit hold.
Legit.
Oh, definitely. It's so funny because when I was wrestling on my high school team, I always remember the guy. They all knew I was a wrestling fan. The guys who would say, "Oh, it's fake, it's fake." I would put them. I'd say, "All right, let me put you in a submission hold," and it'd either be an ankle lock, AJ Styles calf crusher, different things. They'd be like, "Oh my God, this actually hurts." Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
How's that for being fake?
Exactly. Exactly. But so we went over who you picked as your goats. Who would you say are your biggest inspirations in MMA and pro wrestling for both worlds?
Well, in MMA, I didn't, just because it was such a new sport and I was one of the beginnings. So it's hard. But I would have to say really where I've got a lot of my, thoughts of fighting and the determination and the character was from Mike Tyson. So I geared a lot of my mental preparation before a fight. Kind of like him, whereas you're in my way, if you chose this fight, you're gonna regret it. It was no good luck. Hey, it was
straight business, man.
But it was angry too. It was frustration and anger that you would even think that you could compete against me. And so it was a lot of that too. So, but as you get older, you start, becoming a little bit more mature in that professional role. But it was just, like I said, it was so early on. But as far as pro wrestling, there's a lot of them, man. But I would have to say, there's two of them, but I think that the one that I could probably lean on the most would have to be probably Bret Hart. Because I picked his brain a lot. I worked to train with him. He helped me develop my character, basically just be me. And so I would say that was a lot of inspiration for me to go out and be who I was.
Absolutely, man.
Definitely.
But a little back on the pro wrestling side again, with the recent comeback you made in 2019 alongside Impact, how do you feel physically and mentally at the age you are right now? Because you look great, man. Like, you look better than half of the guys we've seen right now.
As far as I know, and people keep asking me too when I do the dive over the top rope, freestyle onto the floor, and everybody's like, and then dive over the top ropes or hurricanranas, and even off the top rope with the belly to belly with Josh. People always ask, "Dude, you okay?" I was like, "What happened? What's wrong?" It's like, I don't understand why they're asking me this, but I do now, because it's almost like I've got to kind of almost step back and look at that from where they're coming from. It's not disrespectful. It's not anything against me. It's more of an amazement of like, how can you be doing that? And so at first I was kind of, why do you guys keep asking me this? I was like, like it's no big deal to me. Like, I'm fine. I was like, I've done this my whole life.
Let me go wrestle, right?
I've done this my whole life. And I remember D'Lo Brown and me had a conversation where I was, and it was actually my first event there, and I was going to do the dive over the top rope to Moose, and D'Lo Brown says, "Hey, there's 100 different ways we can do this. There's 100 different ways we can do this." And I kept saying, "No, I want to do it this way." So every time that I do something like the free dive over the top rope, D'Lo Brown looks at me and he just shakes his head and he goes, "I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it because I know you. You already said you're going to do it."
Definitely, man. So, switching gears here from neither wrestling or MMA, on our podcast, we really like to touch on mental health as a topic. So if you're comfortable sharing, of course, have you ever struggled with your mental health? And do you have any advice for people who are watching who could be struggling?
Yeah, it is. And I think that a lot of people, when you say that word, especially athletes or people in business who are kind of successful, they look at it like it's a dirty word. Like, how dare you challenge my mental toughness? But it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with depression. It has to do with major changes in your life that happen at the most unrealistic times. A death of a wife, a death of a child, a retirement, the things that are so simple as just retirement, where you're used to doing something for 40 years. And all of a sudden it's not there anymore, and you start staying home and you start getting depressed because you don't feel needed anymore. There's a lot of different ways for that depression to happen. And I think that's what you guys are talking about, right? This is something. So, and I've dealt with it myself with a broken neck. I broke my neck twice. The first time when I was in high school, and everything that I had worked for to go to college, play football, to wrestle, do all these things was taken away. Well, at least I was told, right? And so, I had to have people around me literally tell me that, only you have the ability to change whatever direction is happening right now. No matter what it is, I know it's very difficult to move and get out of it because you're stuck, because you can't get it out of your head. And the only way that you're able to get around that and get it out of your head, not that it'll go away forever, but is for you to start focusing on something else that you can have success at. It might even be just getting up out of bed and walking to the store, maybe the first step. And maybe getting out and getting in front of people and having conversations is the first step. But there is a step, and it always comes with that first action. And that first action is the biggest step that you will make, because then it leads to the next step, and then the next step, and the next step, and then 10 steps down the road, you're not even there anymore, but it's still there. You'll always look in the mirror one day, or always wake up in the morning one day and have that.
You look back at it. Yeah.
You'll have it, but you'll know how not to be there. Like, you'll know how not to start sliding backwards, and that's being alone, and that's laying in bed, and that's not getting out and being social and putting yourself into a cellar by yourself.
You're right.
Those are things you can't do, because you'll never get out. So, and I've dealt with it myself several times in my career where things have happened, and there was no control that I could even. There's no way I could control it because it was devastating. And losing my father, who was a major part of my life, adopted me, gave me a life. So those are things that, it's always going to be there, right? And you're always going to have those moments. But the good thing is that because you were able to move forward, because you were able to continue through life, that you're able to have an understanding of what you need to do not to go back there. And so some people do, but at least they have the map of how they got out of it. And if they truly want to, if they really want to, they can. There's a lot of people that just don't want to, and unfortunately you can't. There's no way you can fix that.
Yeah, you can only help yourself sometimes, but control what's controllable. But like you mentioned, you got adopted, and you had a rough upbringing until you got adopted and brought into a great family, I'm guessing. But what would you send if you could send a message right now to your younger self? What would you say to your younger version of yourself?
Wow, that would be a whole lot. I don't know if I could do it in one day. I would definitely say be more patient. It felt like, because I came from the background I came from, where I didn't have a family or parents, and I was in juvenile hall, and I was raised in a group home. It felt like when I got my opportunity in the world of professional sports, I seized it, and I seized it so much that I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like I didn't enjoy it with people around me. I was so focused on becoming the best, so focused on making sure people remembered who I was, that I forgot to thank people around me. I forgot to enjoy it with people around me, because I was so laser focused. Even with my training with the Lions Den camp, I was so focused on making sure that they were successful and that I was successful, that there was no pat on the backs. There was no, hey, good job. There was none of that, because in my mind, there was no time for it. We had to get busy now, and that there was no time wasted on patting each other on the back. And I would have told myself, hey, enjoy the moment. You're always going to have time to improve and work, but also make sure that you let other people know the appreciation for them and the enjoyment that you have with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So, switching back to professional wrestling, how did it feel being the guest referee for one of the greatest matches of all time at WrestleMania 13 between Bret Hart and
Stone Cold?
That was a tricky one, because when I first got into it, and even though I had done pro wrestling early on in South Atlanta Pro Wrestling, but that was like 10 years or something. Like, it was way back, right? Yeah. So when I got into the ring, I was like, and even in the locker room, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I mean, I'm the world's most dangerous man.
Yeah.
How am I going to pretend that somebody's hurt? And how am I going to pretend? Yeah, well, and I'm thinking Bret Hart, Stone Cold, I'm going to have to pretend they're hitting each other. I'm going to pretend that they're going after each other. And I'm thinking, man, all right, well, let's just see how it rolls. So I get out there with my tight shirt on and my thing on, and I'm just going to do this thing, and I'm going to try to just be me. And probably 5 minutes into the match, I am literally thinking these guys are beating the hell out of one another. I'm like, this is real. Like, I was like doing this like it was a real MMA fight. They did such a great job, man, that I remember even after the match was over and I did the suplex and we did all those things. And I was so caught up into this scene that I forgot it was pro wrestling. So, and that's why it was such a great match. That's why it was probably one of the greatest matches in the wrestling history with WWF, or at least up there with them, because of that moment that we were trying to go with this attitude and this I don't give a crap about anything and changing the characters and no Hulk Hogan, no Nash, no Hall, you know, all these different faces in there into this, it engulfed into this attitude era with Stone Cold, Bret Hart going after each other and all these different characters that developed during that time. And it was almost like the stars had lined up, man. It was such a great match to kick everything off.
Absolutely. And at the end of the match, we saw, you know, obviously Bret Hart heel turn, and then you like whipped him like straight out of the other corner, and I was like, damn, he got him, man, he got him.
Yeah, when I talked to Bret after the thing, and he was like, hey, he was like, next time, let me know when you're going to take me. He says, before I knew it, I was up over on my back. He goes, I'm supposed to help you.
I've honestly watched that match like so many times. It's where Stone Cold was made, because obviously you had the double turn between Bret Hart and Stone Cold. He was already on the rise. They had him as a heel, and this is just basically what cemented him as that baby face. And that's why it's a historical match, and of course, just one of the most realistic matches I've ever seen personally. So, yeah.
Well, that built in such a rivalry when we did the Canadian Stampede match.
Yeah.
Where it was like, I mean, do you want to talk about deafening the fans? It was
the crowd, man,
crazy.
You guys were getting booed out of there. I remember that, man. I watched it back on the network the other day.
we had to be escorted to our cars. It was crazy.
Oh man. Oh god.
Canadian fans are something special, so you know.
Yeah, it's like going into the Raiders' black hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what is your favorite match and moment in your professional wrestling career?
Yeah, I would have to say winning the Intercontinental title. That was that, but I would say the one that probably stands out from all of it would be the King of the Ring with the match with Rock. That was tremendous. That started me and Rock off with some great shows, a great chemistry, and a great story that we were able to tell together for a while. So, and those are some of my better memories. I've had a lot of great ones because you got to remember, I wrestled all the top guys: Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Kane, Vader. I mean, I could go on, right? A Big Show. I got to wrestle. I mean, and that just doesn't happen, right? 2.5 years, I wrestled everybody. So it was really a fun journey and very exciting.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Man. So, but bringing things to the present, recently WWE has presented a new segment on Raw called Raw Underground, which is more of a shoot style Fight Club segment every week at 10 p.m. on Monday Night Raw. What are your thoughts on Raw Underground, and what are the chances of us seeing a Ken Shamrock fight on Raw Underground?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the Underground, I like it. I like the concept.
It's really good. Yeah,
I do. I think wrestling is. I think that when you think about what I said earlier about with the Pancrase organization, what we wanted to find out was what would wrestling look like if it was real, and that's what you have in the Pancrase organization where I fought over there. That's what it looks like when you take wrestling and you turn it into a real fight. And it's sharp. We had all kinds of champions coming out of Pancrase into the UFC, and then UFC, they were winning championships there. So the talent is there. So, you know, I mean, so it's funny how you look at that and you think to yourself, the thoughts that these wrestling fans have as far as what is real and isn't real is very, very minute when it comes to
That's
pro wrestling, real fighting.
Very true.
And so when you think about what WWF's doing with the Underground, is what they're really doing is they're going, hey, let's find out what it's like if we can start doing these predetermined outcomes, but yet let's make it more physical. Let's make it more real. And they're going to find out the same thing we did over in Japan, that it's much, much more exciting when you're watching a movie that you can't tell whether it's real or it's not real.
Yeah,
100%. Exactly. I love Raw Underground. I really do. Because I remember Dolph Ziggler, who has a great amateur wrestling background. Obviously, growing up a pro wrestling fan, I'm always invested. I'm always excited to see a normal pro wrestling match. But when I saw Raw Underground, I saw a different side of Dolph Ziggler using his amateur wrestling moves, sprawling on people. I started popping, and I got taken out of the moment of thinking this is a show, and I was like, yeah, get him.
Yeah. It felt real, man. It felt real. 100%.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, that right there tells you though it's no knock on Dolph at all, but it just shows you that as far as the concept of mixed martial arts or no holds barred fighting isn't there, because you don't sprawl, right?
That's true.
Because when they shoot in, they're giving you submissions, and so if you sprawl, you take yourself out of pulling a guillotine, being able to roll up into the guard, and being able to move from that point. Because when someone does shoot on you, there's a lot of opportunity that you have to be able to catch somebody's back or be able to get in a position to submit them, as opposed to just sprawling. Because if you just sprawl, you've got nothing. I mean, you literally got nothing.
Absolutely, man. But I hope we see you there, but you know what? Never say never, as they say. So absolutely. But taking it from a pro to another pro, like Kurt Angle, recently he posted a video of himself, and he looked like he was in great shape. And you're in great shape as well. What are the chances of us seeing a Kurt Angle match between you if he came out of retirement?
Well, that would be up to Kurt, right? I mean, like, I have always entertained the idea for me and him to have a match. But again, I have the utmost respect for Kurt. I'm honored that he took that hold that I had invented, along with everyone else, right? I'm honored that they have been able to make that hold even more famous. So that's never been an issue, and I've expressed that to him when we've talked. But the opportunity for me and him to get into the ring, give the fans what I know the fans want to see. I know I want it. I know Kurt wants it. It's whether or not he's physically capable of being able to put in the training to be able to come in and do the match.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely a dream match. But you have been performing at such a high level, and it's very impressive at the age of 56. But as the time starts ticking down for every athlete, eventually they got to wonder, when are they going to be hanging up the boots? So have you been thinking about that?
Well, that's where I think that's the first drop off, right? Is when you start thinking about it, because that's what happened with DC. There's no doubt in my mind that if DC goes into that fight with no retirement on his mind, and I know he'll disagree, and I know a lot of fans will too, but he doesn't lose that fight. I don't think he loses that fight. But I just believe there's something that goes off in your head when you see the finish line, right?
Yeah.
And it's not the same thing as if you're in the race and you sprint for it, right? It's different, because I think you ease up. Because you're not looking to finish for a trophy. You're not looking to cross that line for a trophy or for the next step. You're looking to cross that line to slow down. To slow down in life. And so I think when that starts to come into your mind and you start thinking about it and you make an announcement before you actually fight, you've basically, I think, handcuffed yourself.
That's true.
Because now you're telling the other guy you're not getting a rematch. So Chick's going, and I'm going to give it all, because I ain't going to let him do a walk-off here.
Exactly.
And be the heel of it. And so you're throwing gasoline onto a fire now, saying, I'm going to beat you and I'm going to walk off and leave you holding all the regret. And so that adds fuel to him. And in your own mind, you're saying, well, I'm done. Like, I don't know what's next. And so for me, I thought, when you start thinking, and people keep bringing it up to me all the time, when do you think that is? And it's like, I have no idea. I don't. And when that happens, I'll know it. And that's the time when everybody else will. But if you ask me now about it, then I'm going to go, well, let me think back. Well, I feel good now. Maybe a year. So I don't know. Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. So right now, every day and any day, I'm going to get better. I'm going to improve until I can't.
I think that's an amazing way to look at it. I really do.
Yeah. Great perspective. But we always like to ask one final question to all of our guests. What is the next chapter for Ken Shamrock?
Yeah, I don't know. Right now, the chapter I'm in seems like I'm rewriting it from all the history books and what everybody's able to do. And so for me, it's going to be each and every day. I have a goal set in mind of things I have to do and I have to get done, whether it's in training, whether it's in regular day life, whether it's family, whatever it is. Those are things I focus on. And that's what I focus on through the day. And the next day, I try to make sure that I do it better. If I go into training this day, tomorrow, or the next day I go into train, I'm going to do it better. And make sure that every single day that I'm always improving on my health, I'm improving on my conditioning, my strength, and also the quality of my life.
Yeah, always got to outdo the yesterday. But
absolutely be better than you were yesterday. So the questions are wrapped up, but we do like playing one quick game to end off every interview. So basically, we are going to list off 10 people in the wrestling business / MMA business, and you can use one word or sentence to describe each of them.
Okay.
All right, perfect. So we're going to kick it off with Kurt Angle.
Oh, man, never give up. Constantly pursuing greatness, or was. Right.
Brock Lesnar.
Beast mode. That's the beast mode. Real 100%. Beast mode.
The Rock.
Entertainment. Oh man, electrifying.
Absolutely.
Daniel Cormier.
Possibly one of the greatest heavyweights of all time.
Yeah, I would say so. John Jones.
Complicated, very complicated, but a tremendous fighter.
Absolutely. He's really good,
man. Bret Hart.
Flamboyant, exciting, and technically sound.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Buy me a keg. Let's get it party. Fun, exciting, entertaining, and no BS.
No BS at all.
Yeah, absolutely, man. X-Pac.
Oh, sweet guy. A very, very nice guy, and underachiever. I'm not underachiever, overachiever for his status.
Yeah, he was really good in his time. Sami Callihan.
Intelligent. The psychology of wrestling, second to none.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And last but not least, your TNA heavyweight champion, self-proclaimed TNA heavyweight champion, Moose.
Man, he's tremendously athletic and has a bright. I know his future has already been good, but man, I think that he is. He's the best is yet to come with him.
He's only going to get better, honestly.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
But
well, thank you so much for joining us. This is a great interview. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Yeah, if you go to kenshamrock.com, I have all my social platforms on there. And if you're interested in fighting, bare knuckle fighting, especially, go to valorbk.com. Check that out, man.
Link will be in the bio. And I want to thank you, sir, for finally, taking the opportunity and, giving us this opportunity and platform to do the interview. And the interview will be up on Friday. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Please make sure to stay safe and take care.